Hey! Barks from the bookshelf and we're gonna learn about our dogs. And barks from the bookshelf and we're gonna learn together. Barks from the bookshelf, we're gonna learn about our dogs. And barks from the bookshelf, get down. Hey!
Okay, so a very, very warm welcome to returning guest.
Back again.
and DogX speaker. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Simone Mueller.
Hello.
Hello, guys. Thank you for having me back.
Thanks for coming back.
Let's all talk about the elephant in the room very quickly, because both Nat and Simone, we're actually, for those of you listening just on audio, we're trialing recording this on YouTube as well. And Simone and Nat have professional backgrounds, and Corin and I
have a Newfoundland in a cone.
Yeah, and we're in a converted garage, which is actually my office in our new house. So
got a lad with a smudge on the wall.
So if it looks a little bit like a scene out of Saw.
You should turn it to black and white.
Yeah, and as Corin said, we have got a Newfoundland in a cone, so you might see her wandering past, wondering why she's got a plastic bucket on her head. But
Bless her.
Yeah. So, right, before we get into the main filling of our podcast sandwich today, which is going to be about talking about loose lead walking and your wonderful book, Walking Together, Simone, let's talk a little bit about your upcoming appearance at DogX 2024.
Yes. Sorry, I felt like that needed a bit of drama there.
So this is going to be tricky, because I would like you to talk about perhaps what you're going to do without telling anyone what you're going to do.
Exactly. Given the fact that last time we talked, I had no idea. You asked me and I was like, oops, I don't know yet. So I thought it might be useful to think a little bit about this. Yeah.
I mean, we've got the title Training Through a Dog-Centric Lens, and obviously us, our PAC students form quite a large section of the audience that come to watch us, but anyone can come along. So we're looking for things that are kind of trainer-centric, and obviously you fall massively into this category, which is why you were a no-brainer in terms to invite and have speak for us.
Yeah, thank you. But I think it's challenging when you have a very mixed audience. So you don't want to bore the dog trainers, the dog professionals, but you also don't want that nobody from the dog guardian side understands what you are talking about. So
yeah,
it's quite tricky. But I thought a little bit about it, and I think we can make that work.
So for anyone who's interested, we do still have tickets available. It's going to be absolutely awesome, and we're privy to a bit of what Simone's going to be doing, and it's going to be very exciting indeed. So do come along. Come and hang out with all of us for a day. 6th of October 2024, Winchester University, and it's dogxconference.com. I know I would have put an advert on this. Oh, one quick thing actually, Simone. Going out on this podcast, you're gonna have to listen to it back to hear this, but I have created I do these little songs on the podcast as well. So
I know. I heard.
I've created one inspired by your work.
And really?
And it's called What Comes Natural, Mate, and it's about a lurcher type dog called Risky, who is into chasing bunnies. And I'm trying to include as many kind of like words from your books about what's going on physiologically with the dog. It's all very
a fun one.
It's brilliant. Wow. It's really good.
This is amazing. I need to hear this. Where can I listen to that?
Well, when we release the podcast on Tuesday, I'll include it in the podcast. So I'll whack it at the beginning bit, so you don't have to listen to the whole podcast. Okay, so
you're not going to talk about your atomic kitten song.
Well, I tagged Simone in that last night. Yeah. So Steve, for those of you that haven't heard it, please go to our Pact Facebook page and listen to the little video from, what was the date yesterday? 1st of August, about DogX, and put your sound on. because it's very fun. And
I think I'll stick that at the beginning of the
geeks,
podcast as well.
they are the best geeks. That's my favourite line. I love it. I've actually put it on my playlist.
I should say, Corinne really doesn't like that song.
Oh, sorry, Corinne.
It's me in the room now, but I'm normally the biggest fan. The other songs that you've done, I'm always bobbing away to.
She thinks it sounds like. Do you know Atomic Kitten, Simone?
Yeah.
She thinks I sound like Atomic Kitten.
It is a little bit. Looking back where we first met, that one. Now everyone's gonna hear it. Oh, it's very good, very good. So yeah, watch this space for more songs, basically.
So yeah, there's going to be more songs definitely, and I'll make sure I put those two on the podcast as well, so people can have a listen. You may have already heard them. Who knows? Breaking down the fourth wall there a little bit. Right, okay, let's get to it then. Loose lead walking, easy to teach, right?
Yeah.
So you've written, I'm going to say,
wonderful, by the way.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement here that this Walking Together book right here is an absolute wonderful book. And although you, I don't know if you'd agree with this, maybe I assume you might, although you've kind of aimed for high arousal, high drive dogs in the book, I think it's pretty good for anyone that wants to learn any kind of loose lead walking. Would you agree with that?
Of course. I just thought or found out during my work that a lot of dog owners, especially of those high energy, high prey drive dogs, they struggle a lot with loose leash walking. But of course, this does not exclude the other dogs that are not that with special effects. So I think every dog can profit from this protocol, because it focuses a lot on natural behavior and on why a lot of dogs struggle with loose leash walking, so we can tackle the root cause of the problem. And yeah, this is what I had in mind when I wrote the book. Especially, I had one client in mind, to be honest. I had this one lady in my training. I tell her story in the very beginning of the book, in the preface. What's it called in English? The
preface.
Yeah, the preface.
Preface.
Yeah.
The preface. And it's a dog called Nelly, and I heard her in my training, and she was so challenging. She came to my training the first session. We just sat and were breathing. So we didn't do anything, any training. We were just sitting on a rock, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, because this dog was really untrainable in the beginning. She was so hyper, and so it was I felt terrible for this poor lady who drove over 1 hour to come to me, and then we were just sitting there breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, until the dog was finally in a state where we could start doing something with her. And she has come such a long way. It's amazing. It's not just me doing it. I don't want to claim that. It's the whole package of her owner, and the training, and what they do at home, and also physiotherapist who was involved. And this was the dog that I first thought about. We have to have another approach with loose leash walking for those dogs who are completely over threshold when they just go through the door, basically. Yeah.
Is that Nelly on the front of the book?
Yes, it's Nelly.
Yes.
And then I asked them, do you want to be on the cover? And she was like, yes, I want to be on the cover. And now she has ordered, I think it was almost 100 books, 100 copies to distribute to all her friends. She even sent them to the US, to her host family, where she was about 20 years ago when she was a student. And all these books now have a stamp with Nelly's paw in it.
That's adorable.
That's so lovely. That's really lovely. And
really lovely.
What a great marketing strategy to sell a book. Just stick a client's dog on the front. Brilliant.
I'm gonna put Nelly on the front of my book.
Yeah, never met her.
So you got me thinking there, because I think I'm interested here. So when you met Nelly, did you have all these other skills in your skill set, or did you have to go out and kind of develop things especially for a Nelly type dog, or were you thinking on the fly? Did you have a full toolkit of loosely walking, you know, because a lot of trainers have a kind of sort of a basic idea of how they will approach loosely walking. And I think when you come across a dog, I really like the term fizzy. Have you ever heard that? Anyone describe dogs as fizzy before? I quite like that. When you become when you come across a dog like that, like a Nelly, it can really like, whoa, can be like, oh, well, hang on a minute, nothing I've got is going to work, and you can feel the pressure as a trainer then to kind of give them something that can work. And I always feel, I'm kind of going on a bit of a tangent here, but I always feel what you really should do in that situation is go, do you know what? I've not seen this before. I'm not particularly well equipped right now with this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and find out. I'm going to go and talk to people. I'm going to go and read a book, and we'll work through this together. So was that kind of, I mean, I guess at some point in your career, that was you at some point, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. So when Nelly came to my training, it was because of predatory behavior and the loose leash walking stuff that came as a byproduct. Because one day we had several training sessions over the stretch of 1 year, and one day she came to me and she said, Nelly just knocked over my mom, and the mom is an elderly lady and she has now shoulder problems, and she cannot walk on a loose leash. And I say, yeah, that's very common in dogs with a high prey drive, because they are so aroused when they are in an environment that triggers their predatory behavior. And this is the root cause, that they cannot focus because they're too hyper in this environment. And I didn't have those tools, to be honest, because when of course, I learned about loose leash walking, the normal approaches during my dog trainer education. But to be honest, I always shied away from loose leash walking because I found it so boring to teach. Even to my own dogs, my own dogs, they were until 2 or 3 years ago, they were hardly able to walk on a loose leash. My husband was always joking if we could just find somebody to teach our dogs how to walk on a loose leash, a trainer maybe.
And I was like, nah, life's too short, it's fine.
And I was like, oh, this is so hard to teach and not sustainable. The normal ways to teach loose leash walking is nothing that is sustainable in a more arousing environment for the dogs. And so I always shied away. And when I had Nelly and several other dogs, I had, for example, one hound, which was really challenging to train loose leash walking, but the owner wanted to teach her because she was having a baby, and she needed the dog to be besides the stroller. So I thought a lot about how to do that. And then as you said, I looked at different approaches. I talked to colleagues, and then I just puzzled it all together as a kind of training program. I thought like, okay, here we can have this game that I learned in this occasion, and here we need something more like I learned from this, and then of course some basic work from predatory behavior to reduce the overall arousal, get more focus from the dog. And so it all evolved. And even when I wrote the book together with Charlotte Garner, who is a kind of a copywriter, ghostwriter, and also author, and she writes it together with me. And when we had the whole structure, I thought about it and I thought, it doesn't work. It's not enough. It's not enough for a Nelly or a Luna, who is the hound. And then I put in some more stuff on this way, and Charlotte was like, oh, I have to do it again. Yeah, but I think it turned out in a way that when you follow it, you can have some successes, even with those very highly aroused dogs, is fussy dogs.
Yeah. I think, writing it like that, in the way with a dog in mind, you're almost writing a book that can go out there into the big wide world in the style of a training plan for an individual dog. And I think us as professionals, we have to remember that and not shy away from the fact that, just like a book or a training plan, you have to start at the beginning, because otherwise you're skipping a lot of important stuff. And I think when a Nelly is in front of you, it's easy to think that you're shortchanging your client, maybe by going, look, I know that's what you want to work on, but actually we've got to do all this stuff first. Otherwise we're not going to get there. And I think I mean, I certainly struggle with maybe feeling that I'm giving people enough, you know, because I want them to see the benefits of what I'm talking about and come back and, you know, not think, oh, well, she didn't really do anything there, and off they go to find someone else. So I think you know, using your book alongside some of these trickier clients could be a really good tool for professionals, because even if the client reads the first few pages, they're going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I do have to start from the beginning. You're right. There's no sort of shortcut here.
Well, they have to read the first third of the book, don't they, to really because the first third of the book is you explaining really why dogs pull in the first place, and again, so getting those clients on board with, so like Nat was just talking about, in that initial session you have with someone, your book alongside that, because you can't necessarily talk about that and then retain all of that in that one session with you. So with a little bit of backup from Simone's book, you might have that client booking back in to see the process through. So yeah, I think it's a wonderful book, and I'll be recommending it to all our students.
Yeah, I also, during the process of writing the book, you know, when you write a book, you have to structure everything in your head really clearly to put it on paper. And I had a lot of those light bulb moments myself when I thought thoroughly about different breeds, what they were made for, how they were bred over the centuries, why they do things like they do and why they tick like they do. And of course, somehow I knew it, but putting it all on paper really helped me to realize what an amazing behavior loose leash walking actually is, because the dog has to, every single step, the dog has to think about, where's my human, where am I in space and time, and how do I self-regulate so that we can walk on a loose leash. And this is such, for us, it's just walking in our pace. But for them, it's something totally different. They have to reduce their speed. They have to reduce their natural movement pattern. It's so much for them to do. And we say, oh, they just need to walk slower. No, it's not like that. It's a whole new concept for them. And it's nothing that comes natural for them. Nothing. No aspect of loose leash walking comes natural to a hunting dog or to a herding dog, or maybe to a Great Dane, yes, or to a Mastiff type dog, because they walk slower naturally. So they do not have to adjust their pace and their movement pattern so much. But for those high energy dogs, it's a struggle. It's an accomplishment. Yeah.
Even like, sorry, Corinne.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, even carriage dogs that, you know, do have in their genetics, okay, I'll match that. I run alongside that. I mean, I don't walk the same pace as a horse-drawn carriage.
No, I can tell you, Scooby-Doo was partial to a bit.
That's really interesting, actually, because one of the things I noticed, so we had a dog, Scooby, who was a Dalmatian cross border collie, and he was a dream to train. I'll be honest. He made me think I was a really good dog trainer until, unfortunately, he passed and other dogs came into my life, and I realized actually he was just a really good dog. And I had to relearn everything from scratch, pretty much. But I found it so whenever I used to go jogging with him, and whenever I went jogging with him, by the way, I'm not saying that this is the way to train loose lead walking. Go out there and jog with your dog. No, because
that does appear in Simone's book.
Okay, well, I mean, it may help, but obviously not everyone can go out jogging with their dog, I guess, is the point.
I'm never going to do that. Just saying.
Yeah, but it was easy for him because of the pace, and it kind of brings you into that idea of, like, you know, why is loose lead walking training so hard? There's so many reasons. There's so many things against you before you even begin, and it's probably why the success rate is pretty low, I would say, in the general sort of public out there. But if you think, you know, obviously we talked about genetics. I love the bit in your book where you talk about intentional. So pulling that's intentional, like I need the toilet, you know, simple things like I need the toilet, or I'm following scent or something along those lines. You talk about the fact that there might be a medical condition at play. There's the old dreaded chain that we've accidentally trained our dogs to put us all over the place. There's the fact that they walk faster than us. We're two-wheel drive, they're four-wheel drive. There's so many things. The environment is full of all these different reinforcers, so many things against you. And I think trying to kind of convince people to take it really slow and bring everything down, and it's tricky. And this is where your book is great, because you have this kind of layout, these 4 puzzle pieces that's easy to follow and really easy to know when to move on as well. There's some great parts in your book, these little ends or starts of chapters where you're like, right, be honest now. Are you ready to move on? Because if you're not, that's fine. You go back a little bit, you work on that for a couple of weeks, and it kind of gives people permission to slow down. Because if you haven't met your dog's needs, if you haven't, and this kind of stands for any dog, not just high prey dogs, if you haven't met their needs, if you haven't given them an outlet, if you haven't worked on the basics in non-distracting environment, all of the stuff that we spout on about, you're never going to get anywhere. And I really like those parts. So it's difficult. That's basically what I'm trying to say with this big long rant. It's difficult. Lucy, what is difficult?
It is. Yeah.
I am guilty of having a bit of a terrier bias. And when you were talking about the breeds in the book, and I'm working through, I can't remember what order, but I was thinking, is there going to be a terrier in here? And then I was like, that's the terrier. And then I was just like, yeah, my little Penny is the perfect terrier. But yeah, all of that stuff, like ready, the deepest of deepest sleeps. And if I look like I'm heading towards the door, she's like, oh, let's go. From that, and your work, that is just getting people to know that behavior there is perfect. That's what they were made to do.
Yeah.
But that's what's working against you when it comes to trying to walk down that road that you want to sort of meander down.
Yeah. And I think this is so difficult for the dogs, because they were bred over 200 years, 250 years to do this exact thing. And then suddenly now, for about the last 30 years or some 40, 50 years, we don't want them to do that anymore. But only as pet owners, the hunters or the sheep, the shepherds, they still do. So they are still bred for this breeding standard. But when we have them as pet dogs, not now. How should they know, and how should they cope with that? This is really amazing. Yeah.
It's and I also think about I want to go into sort of like some of the things that we can do, that talk a bit practical stuff, but I often see people that have rescued, been good Samaritans and rescued a dog from abroad. Maybe they're a free roaming dog, maybe they're a puppy, but they've got that hunting gene strong within them, and they kind of come to you shell shocked, like, I saw a picture of this dog online, they got dropped off to me at a service station somewhere, they're like, this isn't the kind of dog that I wanted, it's not the kind of dog I was expecting. And they are just, they are on it. They are like, I need to be off this lead in those woods. I feel sorry for that sort of situation. I think it can be overcome. But I feel sorry for the guardian. I feel sorry for the dog. I think, it's a hard one, that one, to kind of get your head around as a trainer sometimes.
Yes, that's true. And there is also a lot of lack of education or knowledge from the dog guardians, what to expect. Because when we read those rescue websites or the breeders' websites, it's all about euphemisms. I don't know if I pronounced this correctly.
Yeah.
For example, when the dog is said to be very strong-willed, it means that he does what he wants, but it is put into words that the dog owners find nice. And
I think my favorite is loyal, which means bites other people.
Exactly. Or a one-person dog means very standoffish, that can't be touched and addressed by anybody and stuff. Yeah, and I had this lady, it was a young lady in my training with her very first dog, and it was a Podenca from Portugal with these big ears.
Beautiful dogs, aren't they?
Beautiful dog, very delicate, very, very bouncy. And she came to my training because she wanted to build a better relationship with her new dog. She said, I only have her for a couple of months and we need to work a little bit on our, and I was, yeah, great, let's do that. And then she said, the only thing she's great, she's doing wonderful, but the only thing I struggle with is when I take her into the field, where I normally walk her. She lives in an area where there's surrounded by beautiful meadows and fields. She immediately starts to hop for mice. So whenever she goes into that field, she can barely walk this dog because this poor dog goes like hop, hop, hop into the field looking for mice. And then I said, okay, let's go on YouTube and find a video of how do Podencos work in Spain and in Portugal with their owners. And we found this video, which is super nice, where you can imagine it's just a trailer in the field, and then the trailer is opened and all the Podencos run about the field and they look for rabbits. This is the traditional hunting way in Spain and in Portugal. So it's a pastime activity in the countryside. And then they bring back those rabbits to their owners and they put them into a bag. And after the afternoon is gone, then all the Podencos go back into the trailer and are driven home. So what these dogs are bred to do is get outside, start to hop and look for bunnies and chase down those bunnies. And never ever in the history of any Podenco in Spain, there was only one person who looked at their loose leash walking skills. Never ever. They don't even have a leash sometimes because they are just put into the trailer and then they go back into the kennels. So for 200 years, nobody has ever selected a pair of Podencos to mate with each other because they were so nice on leash. It's not in their genes. Yeah,
and they don't even need to be on the lead from like home to the van because they know what the van means and they're like, right, I'm on it, and we're all jumping in. It's great. Exactly. You've basically described every Podenco I've ever met as well. Like it's like, bye, I'll be back when I'm finished.
Yeah, exactly. See you later, 6-foot fence.
Exactly. Yeah,
I love that they bounce as well. Like be the bunny.
Yeah, be the bunny. Yeah.
It's so incredible, and they're living their best lives while they're doing that as well. And they're probably going home and sleeping for the rest of the day.
I mean, the rabbits aren't.
No, the rabbits aren't.
Yeah, it's not so nice for the rabbits, to be honest.
No, not so great for the rabbits. Yeah, definitely. So, okay, let's get into a little bit of nitty gritty about loose lead walking. I think that would be quite beneficial for our listeners and watchers potentially. Equipment. I wanted to talk about equipment because, oh my God, you'll always find, no matter what bit of equipment you bring up for loose lead walking, and there are some horrendous ones out there. I think we can all agree on that. But no matter what bit of equipment you bring up for loose lead walking, there's always someone in the dark depths of the internet that's willing to argue that it's the worst thing in the world for your dog. Now, some of them are, I want to caveat that, definitely, some of them are. But even things like, front attachment harnesses and that, you can find someone somewhere who is telling you why that is the worst possible thing you can stick on your dog, and then it causes your dog to pull or this and that. I think, equipment for me, obviously, we don't use equipment like prong collars and e-collars and things along those lines. Aversive tools, should we say, or tools that can be used in an aversive way. I think equipment can be, first of all, really, really helpful in terms of providing context for your dog. I think that's something that I actually arrived at that quite late in my training career. But as soon as I got the idea of that, I was like, okay, and it made everything a hell of a lot easier. So like, if you're wearing this piece of equipment, we are doing this. If you're wearing this piece of equipment, we're doing that, and that's been used for years and years in working dogs. So it makes complete sense. But this kind of idea that a piece of equipment will cause pulling, what's your sort of thoughts on that, Simone?
I heard this the first time on an English-speaking Facebook post or something like this, that harnesses cause pulling, and I have never heard this from in German, because I don't know where this comes from, and but it doesn't exist here, and I'm glad about this. So I have no idea where this comes from. This perception, maybe because maybe it's because a well-fitted harness a dog does not really know that it's on the body. And maybe this is why it is so not aversive to the dog. The dogs can do what they want to do and pull. Maybe this is the reason where this myth comes from, that harnesses cause pulling, because it's not holding the dog back in an aversive way that the dog feels pain or uncomfortable or something like this. Whereas I can see that totally in Ayla. Ayla normally wears a harness, and she sometimes wears a collar when I just take her out for a couple of minutes or something. And when she has that collar on, she's much more sensitive on the collar. So I can lead her really with one finger, whereas on the harness, she sometimes pulls when she wants to get from A to B. Yeah, so maybe this is the harness is more comfortable for the dog. So I want to put it on the dog because it's the most natural way we can have the dog during the training. And if your dog pulls when the dog is on a harness, then the dog does not know about loose leash walking. It's just something that he has never learned.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure. And also it's the consequences that cause the behavior as well. You know, that's the thing that's missed a lot in that kind of line of talking. I think we all just need to move to Germany. You've got better beer glasses. You've got
we have different stuff going on, but this one sentence I have never heard here. It's interesting. Don't tell.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is kind of backwards justification, if you know what I mean. So I think it's probably come from people wanting to sell items like, and I don't necessarily mean sell commercially, but probably as well, you know, emotionally, commercially, slip leads, prong collars, that kind of thing. And then maybe trying to justify their point that harnesses aren't great by saying, well, look at Huskies, they wear harnesses and they pull. And I don't know whether you've heard the same as well. And again, I'm not, I don't mean to vet bash or anything like that, but I've also heard or had clients come to me where their vets have told them not to use a body harness, to use a collar instead, because of potential joint issues. And it's like, well, you know, a straitjacket is going to potentially cause muscular issues and, you know, developmental concerns, but a decent fitting harness, surely. I mean, sometimes common sense is right?
But I heard that too. And to be honest, there are harnesses out there that are either not very physiological on the dog, or that are designed to stop the dog from pulling. So the no pull harnesses and stuff, and they work through inflicting pain. So when the dog pulls forward, ouch, this hurts, so the dog does not pull anymore. So when you put something on your dog and then they magically suddenly can walk on a loose leash, there must be something going on. It's unless you taught them first, if they suddenly stop, it's not normal.
It's either stopping or suppressing the behavior in some way, isn't it, if that piece of equipment is working. I think that's an important thing for people to get their heads around. You know, to some degree, you know, all harness could be uncomfortable for a dog to wear if it's not fitted properly. And there are certain types. I'm not a big fan of the ones with the bars that kind of go across the shoulders. You know, there are certain types of harness that when you see dogs walking, they're kind of pinched in a little bit, and that can't be nice.
Or maybe I have seen them a lot in American videos where there is this strap on the in front of the legs, so it's very deep down on the legs of the dog, and every time the dog moves there is this bar.
I haven't seen them. I've seen them on the chest, but not lower down on their legs.
Not down than the chest. It's the what is this called on the legs? The
shin.
Forearm, shin.
Shin. It's really weird. It looks so weird. It looks uncomfortable. So you should know or see that it cannot be comfortable for the dog.
Simone, you know, in your book you talk about the waving the stick is still quite a popular method of teaching dogs to walk on the loose lead. Perhaps that's mimicking that kind of thing. So rather than having to hold the stick yourself, the bit that's hanging down is doing that job of the stick.
Maybe that's the reason. yeah, can be. Yeah.
There's so many weird and wonderful contraptions. I've seen some absolutely bizarre things that claim to help with loose lead walking, and people want that. You want that quick fix. If you're that person that's that's rescued a dog, or even you just got an adolescent dog that's just suddenly become hit teenagehood, and they're suddenly everything's gone out the window. You don't want to spend 6 months training your dog. You don't, do you? Let's be honest.
Exactly. Yeah.
And these things are alluring, aren't they? If you go, I mean, I think if I typed into Google now, my dog pulls on the lead, the adverts that are going to come up are not going to be 6-month training programs. Probably your book isn't going to come up straight away, even Simone, even though it should. It's going to be quick fix, probably some sort of horrible collar like an e-collar or something like that. And that's just the way it is. Humans want these quick fixes, but putting the time in is so beneficial. And again, going back to your book, I think that's the beautiful thing about it, because it lays it out in a really nice, clear way for people to follow. So let's move on then to obviously I don't want you talking too much about it, because we want people to go away and buy your book, obviously, and come to DogX. But the 4 puzzle pieces. So we've got provide an outlet, we've got lowering arousal, we've got teaching loose lead walking, and then we've got transferring. I love the fact that there's teaching and transferring. I think that's a really, really nice way of putting it. Maybe we can talk a little bit about each of these and why you've included those puzzle pieces in the book, and why that, I mean, for us it might seem obvious, but for other people listening, why they're in that particular order. So should we start with providing an outlet then?
Yeah. So normally in my other books, you can just hop from one part to the next and pick out what suits you best. But here you should really follow the course of the book, because otherwise it will all get messy. And I think the first thing that people need to know is that they need to give the dog an outlet. Your dog will never be able to sustainably walk on a loose leash if they do not have this off-leash free time. And this might sound not comfortable to a lot of people, but I say that you have to find your dog outlets. And if you don't have something, or if your dog cannot be off leash, you have to become creative. You have to find a fenced area or a dog park, and you have to go there in after hours when nobody is there. So your dog needs this free movement, free range for about 2 to 3 times a week. This is really essential. And I always have those, when I say this, I always have a setter in mind that I had in training once. And of course, he was also struggling with loose leash walking. And then we talked this through, and they found a company building in an industrial park. And they had a very secure fence around their building. And he talked to the owner, to the boss of this company, and he allowed him to use this venue 2 to 3 times a week. And after a couple of weeks, the owner, the boss said, it's so nice because he often stays longer when his employees are already at home, and he sits there on his desk and works, and then he sees this dog running around outside of this building in the venue, and this gives him so much joy. So I think this is a very nice example to think outside the box, to give your dog an outlet and to find something for your dog that you might not come up with without thinking about it. And this can even be a win-win situation for everybody.
People love dog watching, don't they? We went to the beach the other day. It was too hot to take the dogs, but some people had their dogs and they were doing fine. And it was just joyous watching them run in and out of the sea. And I was narrating their whole walk as they walked past me. I probably looked like, people were staring like, why is she narrating my whole dog's walk? But I was having a great time.
Beaches are great because there is not so much wildlife, only the occasional birds and stuff. But we have no beach within 600 kilometers.
So arousal's an interesting one, isn't it? It's kind of a bit of a, it's been used as a bit of words kind of to avoid and then to embrace, and then a bit of misunderstanding about it. So maybe you can talk a little bit about arousal and how people might approach lowering arousal.
Yeah. So arousal is something that normally you don't have to teach dogs. You rather have to teach dogs to surf on this wave of arousal, to get up, but to calm down again. And for high prey drive dogs, they get aroused so easily, so they don't even need a wildlife or a trigger or something around. They just see a certain area or environment, and they are immediately in hunting mode. So the arousal goes up. It's the orientation behavior, the first part of predatory behavior, where the dog is, they have it in them to find prey for us, because this is what we wanted them to do for hundreds of years. So we wanted the terriers to go out and find rats or stuff in the stables, or we have the hunting dogs that the human hunter takes out to help them with their hunt. So whenever the human is ready to go, the dog should be ready too. So now we have dogs that are ready all the time, because they are just waiting for the next opportunity. And when they come into woodland or into fields, it depends on what they were bred to do, they are immediately in hunting mode. And this means arousal goes up. And now we have to find ways to lower this arousal again, so that they are not always alert and always in a dopamine rush and looking for the next kick.
Yeah.
This section is where it links back to your other book, isn't it? Hunting Together.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all the root problem is something that is called predatory over arousal, which means the dogs do not need a trigger. They are just assuming that something could be around, and they are already through the roof.
That's like your I'm thinking of cases, loads of dogs are springing to mind. That's like your dog that has seen a cat under a car, and then now even pavement walks are filled with predatory arousal because there might be a cat under that car.
Exactly. Yeah. And for those dogs that are genetically hardwired for certain areas, that does not even need to be one cat at one point, because what you now mentioned is a kind of one try learning. So there has been a cat once, and now every time I come by this car, I need to look underneath the car. There is another cat. But for setters, for example, when they see an open field, even though a setter who has never ever seen wildlife in their whole life, they come into this open field and they immediately are triggered just by the openness.
Yeah. I'm going to give a shout out to Sean. Hi, Sean. Just thinking of Nina right now. This bit's for you.
Yeah.
So I had a chat with one of our lovely students this week about her sort of setter cross, and this is all ringing true. I mean, there is no greater joy in life than watching a setter run
it's
free.
Wonderful.
But
it's
also
wonderful.
If that setter belongs to you, you're also on the edge of panic at every moment, because they go far.
Even for me as a dog trainer, I'm not used to my dogs being far. I have Australian Shepherds, they are with me all the time. And I take out the setter owners. The setter owners are like chatting and relaxed, and I'm like,
they've gone over that hill over there.
How would you like to call your dog? Because I'm not used to these wide distances.
Yeah.
I worked with a red setter once, and when I turned up at the guardian's house, her husband answered the door, and he answered the door to me, and he said, I think this is a very British phrase. He goes, "Good luck, mate. He's as mad as a box of badgers."
Nice. Yeah, you know what to expect. And I always say, if I could just live inside one dog's mind for just one day, I would choose a setter, because this must be amazing.
Oh, imagine the fun.
All this craziness.
And you know what? That mad as a box of badgers brings us back to the euphemisms you were talking about. Because if Rescues wrote that, then at least you know what you're taking on a little bit more. You know?
Right.
So, and we should say, so each of these puzzle pieces in the book comes along with lots of games, little step-by-step guides of how to, so you even go quite deep into how to provide outlets, you know, if you can't, find a field and a closed field. And obviously the lowering arousal stuff is where we start to see these little games. It's all kind of game-based, isn't it? Which I really, really like. Nice, easy to follow steps.
Yeah.
We then move on to the big one. teaching loose lead walking.
Mhm.
So again, I love the idea that you, between each of these, you really do push the point in that you know, if you're not ready to go, don't go. You know, stay here, stay at this point. It's when you feel ready, and how you can assess. And I also love the way that you're always talking about taking the time to observe your dog as well. There's a beautiful passage in there. So it's only a little tiny bit, but there's a bit about where you should, you know, have your dog off lead and observe their gait. Notice what they do when they speed up, when they slow down, and how that is what is actually happening when your dog is on lead as well. Because how many of we don't do that, do we? We don't generally, as humans, kind of sit down and observe. I know dog trainers do. That's kind of our bread and butter, isn't it? Sitting down and observing dogs. But you know, to ask a guardian to do that, that might be the thing that makes them go, well, it's obvious why they're pulling me on the lead now. So that's lovely.
Actually, yeah, I put a little note in here, and I'm going to go back to the beach again. Sorry, Simone, I know you don't have it.
Yeah, you're just rubbing it in that Simone can't go to the beach.
But you can really see that, because obviously the pattern of the paws are left in the sand. As
Yeah, nice.
I can see all of that. But it actually allowed me to see that I walk a little bit funny. Because I was like, what's happening here with these footsteps next to my dog's paw prints? I'm like, oh, I scuff my feet when I'm just walking on the beach. I'm a scuffer. Like, that's interesting. I might start picking my feet up a bit.
You're right. So these are the moments when you can really observe your dog's natural movement patterns. And with movement patterns, I don't only mean the speed of their gait, but also the gait that they prefer, and also how they walk. Just as you said, you can follow the footprints, because most dogs don't walk in a straight line like we do. They like to zigzag, or they want to circle, and they have to restrict themselves so much when they are next to us on a loose leash. It's not that they cannot do this, but it's hard for them, and we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah,
definitely. So methods, I mean, I think it's fair to say there are hundreds, thousands of methods. Loose lead walking's got to be one of the big ones, isn't it, for the amount of different methods and ways of doing it, and you know, this is right, this is wrong, etc., etc. How important how much importance would you put on starting early? So say you've got a puppy, obviously, you know, training is not the most important thing when you've got a puppy, but how important, you know, how much importance would you put on getting started early when it comes to loose lead walking?
That's a good question. I have to say I'm not an expert in this field. You know, if it was predatory behavior, I would say start straight away. Day one, you start. With loose leash walking, which is more an obedience behavior, I'm not an expert on that. But I would say that with my next dog, I would start earlier, because now I know all the things that I researched during the book. As I said before, loose leash walking was never my favorite subject to teach to my own dogs or something, so I always avoided it, and I was like, yeah, we do that tomorrow. But now, through writing the book and thinking about this whole stuff, I myself have developed some joy in teaching that. So when the client comes to me, I'm like, oh yeah, let's do some loose leash walking. Whereas in the past, I was like, oh gosh, no, don't come to me with that. I think if you do it through games and in a light atmosphere, you can start straight away. I have one game in my book. I have to say I didn't come up with these ideas myself. I just collected some games that are already out there, and I have found most useful for this purpose. But there is one game in the book that you can start with your puppy straight away. It's so easy, it's so nice, and it is so motivating for the dog, because you build a very strong reinforcement history, which means the dog has very quick successes after one success after the other, and you can play this for about 2 minutes, and then fine, you can start straight away.
There's a game actually it's in the preparation game one called you call it the radius game. I know it as something different. I know it's called Stick With Me, because I learned this years ago. And it's such a wonderful, like you say, a lot of loose lead training can be, or just let's say traditional, I don't know if that's even the right word, can be quite what's the word I'm looking for? Regimented. I think that's the
regimented.
word.
like drills.
Like
like a
drills,
drill.
yeah. So it can be a bit boring. It can be a bit hard to, expect someone to go and do it. But that game, that radius game, I've had amazing success with people going, oh, wow, this is really, really easy. And then increasing the time that the dog sort of comes back and stays with them, mark, toss a treat behind, catch up. And it can be done off lead, it can be done on a long line, and once you find the right game, and this is again the beauty of there being so many different games in the book, but once you find the right game that kind of appeals to someone, that's your way in. They see some success pretty quickly, and that's so I really like that game. That's one that I've used before.
And it lays a foundation for your dog, so you don't have to think about loose leash walking, but you're already laying the foundation for so many things, for focus and also for preventing predatory behavior. When the dog is next to you on a path, the dog cannot at the same time be out and about in the bushes and brushing birds or something. So
brilliant. So what's your favorite game? Have you got one that's in the book?
Yes, the most favorite game that I have is in the core games. I call it hunting the loose leash, but it's also known as drunk walking. But I have only learned this game. I have learned the game before, but the different names afterwards when people approached me and said, "Oh, it's drunk walking," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that name, but it's drunk walking." And you can Google it, and there are YouTube videos as well. And I love this game. This is the one that I would start with my next puppy from day one.
Yeah, it's fun as well. Again, fun for the puppy, fun for the guardian as well.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do it drunk.
It's encouraged, if anything. Brilliant. Okay, so last one then, and most important probably. So all of these things, what we always say to people, isn't it? It's like, make sure all your dogs need to be met, rule out any kind of medical issues that might be going on. And then your addition of like the lowering arousal games is absolutely brilliant. Then the training should take place in a non-distracting environment, and you should be building in distraction slowly. When you come to transferring it, which is the final piece of your puzzle there, what's your advice for people who feel like, oh, I'm ready to start taking this out into the real world?
Yeah, write yourself a ladder of distractions or a hierarchy of distractions. I think this is so crucial to not overwhelm the dogs, to sit down and make a structured plan. Okay, today I take my dog to a certain place, and the next day I do another place, and I add on with the distraction. Of course, I can make a misjudgment and I have to go back, but at least I have made a plan, and I do not jump from stage 1 to stage 5. So I have to go through all the stages. So I have to think what is arousing for my dog, exciting for my dog, distracting for my dog, and then I put them onto a hierarchy from 1 to 10, and then I structured. I work through this structure with my dog.
I love common, and I've been there before as well. Sorry, no. But like you say, go home, work on this in the home, then go to the garden, then start bringing it into the real world. And like you said, there's a whole load of stuff in the middle there that we actually need to talk about. And working in the garden for one of my dogs, the garden is probably my final step. Actually,
yes.
So sometimes that's not the next step.
No, it's very individual. But if your dog already has a high history or a strong history of excitement, so maybe you have a squirrel living in the garden, this is definitely not the next step. It's step 10 maybe on this list. And this is so individual for each dog. And we humans, we tend to work at home, in the garden, maybe on a quiet spot, and then we jump to a mall. I just had this the other day. This is why I say a mall, with a spaniel family. They came to me for loose leash walking, and we laid the foundation in a very quiet area. And then they went home and they said, they sent me a video, and they said, "Oh, it was wonderful. We did this in the mall, and she could do it for 2 minutes, but then not." And I was like, Okay. It's amazing that she could do this for 2 minutes because we were jumping just up the hierarchy in BORM. So your dog is doing really well if he can walk on a loose leash for 2 minutes in a mall at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
You've reminded me there of something I used to see all the time, and that I had to make sure that when I was doing classes when I first started up, that I addressed this early on so people didn't feel like they had to do it. But maybe you started with a class outside. Maybe it's like a follow-on from a puppy, like a bronze or something like that. And you're introducing loose lead walking. So you've introduced loose lead walking. You've given them kind of like the basic skills, and then said go home and practice that sort of thing. But then the next week, when everyone turns up in the car park, they're desperately trying to loose lead walk their puppies sort of 500 meters. It's going to take them about 7 hours to traverse that distance. And that's why I've always thought that context of like providing a training mode and a learning or leisure mode is really easy, because it takes the pressure off the guardians then, because they want to they're like, oh, this has been going really well in the garden all week, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to 500 meters into your field with my dog on a loose lead. Be super excited to get into the field. They know that's where all of the training and the treats maybe they've been to the field before and had fun. So yeah, it's really important.
Yeah, my dogs have never mastered to step onto a training venue on a loose leash. So I have always been pulled after my dogs when it comes to a training venue, and it's still like that today.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you can't achieve it, but you also want your dogs to be excited.
I don't mind. Yeah, it depends, of course. When you are healthy and you are not in danger of tripping over and something, you can from time to time let your dog just do. So for example, when I have a pee spot, and my dogs can absolutely pull me towards this pee spot, or to the training venue or something like this. But when somebody comes to me and says my mom has to take the dog out, and the dog cannot pull my mom because she will fall, then we have to work on that, of course. Yeah, so it always depends.
I think it all comes down to knowing the dog you're working with. If I think about my 5, they've all got different skills and they all find different environments difficult. So, I know I could walk out the front door with Gru straight away and he would walk perfectly along the road. Wouldn't be tricky for him. But the minute we got to the field, that would be the difficult part, because he's a lurcher. So he gets to green open space and he's like, run it. And that's what he wants to do. Whereas Bob would struggle with the road because she's a collie and she wants to stop all the traffic. And so I think, one size doesn't fit all, and that's where all these games and the puzzle pieces come in perfectly, because they are kind of a blueprint, but that you can apply specifically to the dog in front of you without falling back on the old, well, it worked perfectly for my old dog, so I'm doing the same. And and I think your example of you get pulled into some places. If someone took a snapshot of me in some situations with my dogs, they would probably think, oh my goodness, she's like rubbish trainer, what the hell is going on there? But the point is, I've taught them the skills, they have the skills. I choose whether they are required to behave that way in that moment, whether it's safe or not. So if I was just walking from one spot to another and there's no traffic, fine, pull me. If I've got 4 of you on the lead and we're walking and there's traffic, then that's when I'm going to go, guys, come on, do your stuff now. And I know they can do it in those situations, but it's not like we're facing every walk with perfect obedience at my side. So I also think the definition of loose lead walking needs to be kind of looked at, doesn't it? And what we expect, because I still want my dogs to be looking around and sniffing, and I just don't want my shoulder pulled out of my socket. So that's
and I think this is absolutely a deal that you can do with your dog.
Yeah. It is a deal. You're right. It's like, we'll go there, but can you not pull me over onto my bottom? Thanks.
I'm not sure whether this will stand, but Nat's kind of like touched on it a bit, so I'm going to go there. I don't know, again, if you hear this sentence in Germany often, but we kind of there's been some talk about individuals, you know, working with the dog in front of you as an individual, but do you find that some trainers maybe put the breed of the dog on the back burner because they're like, I'm just working with this individual dog, and they're not considering those breed specifics? Like you know, that person who got in touch with the Podenco, well, let's go and look at what Podencos do then. Let's go and watch that YouTube video. Do you feel like some trainers maybe aren't considering this stuff because of that sentence?
I think it's really difficult, this question, because on the one hand side, you don't want to have this breed lens that you only look through, because there is so much about the individual dogs. First of all, each breed has a spectrum. You might have a setter who never pulls on the leash and he's still a setter, but because on this spectrum he's really good at loose leash walking, whereas you could, and the next time you think, oh, I get a setter again because it was quite nice, and then you got one from the other end of the spectrum. So within the breeds there is this they are still individuals, and of course each dog has a learning history, a very individual learning history and an individual character, but also they have this genetic heritage, and so you have to always make sure you do not lose sight of the individual, but also not of the breed, of the things that they bring with them. It's I think it's a good mix of both.
Yeah As usual, it's that sort of middle ground, isn't there? We see that. I always talk about this a lot, and it's endlessly fascinating. But in the world of dog training, that it was Turid that first mentioned this, that the pendulum's swinging you, and it swings out you know, that way, so it's all about breed, and it swings back that way, so it's all about the individual. And really it's that sort of like middle area of where that pendulum's swinging around that everyone should be inhabiting, and most people are inhabiting that, to be honest. It's just a lot of people, wherever that pendulum is swinging, whatever you're talking about, methods, you know, whatever it might be, the loudest voices are always on the edges of where that pendulum's swinging about, and they're the ones you always hear all the time. And all of us lot just sort of hanging around in the middle, you know, trying to do the best by the dogs is sometimes not as loud.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same with children. How to educate, or how to be with your child, and it's so comparable to dog training. It's always like this, no, now we're doing that, and then back to the other one.
It's like yes, you've gone too far, you've gone yes, no, that's too far. It's like, oh god, exactly. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm just going to shut up and sit in the middle there. So I think, you know, looking at the time, we'll wrap this up. But it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you again. And we'd love to have you back on at some point. Obviously, you're coming down to DogX.
It's 66 sleeps, by the way, at time of recording.
66 sleeps.
Still DogX. There we go.
Cool.
It's been really, really enjoyable. Everyone needs to go out and buy all of the books in the series are worth buying.
And they look really nice together in a little threesome on your shelf, by the way. So
anyone attending DogX can get themselves a copy. We're going to have some copies there.
Yeah, we just talked about that. We make them available at the conference too, and if you want to, I can like, I feel like a celebrity.
Yeah, we'll get some Sharpies. We'll get you a little signing desk.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to be first in the queue there. With feedback.
Yeah, really looking forward to this day. It will be really nice.
It will.
Yeah, we're looking forward to meeting you in person, and having a great day, because dog geeks are the best geeks.
Cool. Yeah, and we just talked at the beginning that I'm going to talk a little bit about focus and engagement with for high prey drive dogs, so that because the problem is often that when you take them out, they are always distracted and somewhere else with their thoughts, and often they don't realize that you are still back there at the other end of the leash. So I think I will talk a little bit what we can do about this with a nice anti-predation game.
Fabulous. I'm looking forward to it. Brilliant. I'm looking forward to that more than the jacket potato.
Yeah, but to be honest, the jacket potato sounds quite nice.
I mean, it's an oldie but goodie, right? You can't go wrong. There's it's going to be great, and there's always cake. So it's coming round soon. So we're on our next kind of round of organising now, and it's great to be able to talk to you about what we might hear on the day, so that everyone can get all infused